friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I was scared. I was scared to move because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation with my dad and us just praying over my decision to move or not to move. And he said that he didn't want me to stop living my life and that he wanted me to do exactly what the Lord had called me to do. It was super hard, but I'm so thankful that I didn't make the decision out of fear, but made a decision to step out in faith.
I'm so excited to have you joining me today for my conversation with Bria Greenwood. This is a special season right now as we lead up to the Easter weekend, and right now we're both in Holy Week and Passover, which I think is super beautiful, just seeing the celebration of God's deliverance in both cases. It's such an incredible time to just pause and reflect on God's goodness to us. Whether this is your first time listening to the show, or if you've been listening from the very beginning, I'm just so thankful that you are part of the Creative Impact family. I would love it if you would leave a rating and review in iTunes to help other people find the show as well. Like I mentioned at the beginning, my conversation today is with Bria Greenwood. Originally from Madison, Mississippi, Bria is a professional dancer with Ad Deum Dance Company and a dance teacher. Bria describes herself as someone who loves Jesus and loves her family. She's the oldest of her 5 siblings, and it's really fun hearing about how close-knit their family is in our conversation today. Bria received her dance training from the world's first professional Christian ballet company, Ballet Magnificat, in Jackson, Mississippi. She was in their School of the Arts and then their professional trainee program. We talk about how that time with Ballet Magnificat really developed her love for worship through movement and prepared her for what she's doing now in her work with Ad Deum Dance Company. Bria's story reminds me that sometimes a closed door is really God's provision and his way of guiding us to exactly where he wants us to be. After her time with Ballet Magnificat, Bria moved on her own to Houston to join Ad Deum Dance Company. Bria has such a beautiful heart for God, and you can hear that all throughout our conversation. I also love Bria's heart for bringing joy to others through teaching and through outreach. Enjoy my conversation with Bria Greenwood. Bria, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and just get to hang out. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited when you asked.
It's fun because I feel like we're kind of part of the same family, but kind of didn't quite overlap to where we got to know each other very well. So I'm excited to get to know you better.
Me too. Yeah.
Just have enjoyed watching you dance with Ad Deum the past few years. And what year did you join Ad Deum?
I joined Ad Deum in 2017. Okay. So I'm in my 4th year.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, but it's been really fun getting to watch you perform and this year and a lot of the video projects and stuff that you guys have been doing. So yeah,
it's been really fun.
For sure. Well, do you want to share just a little bit about yourself for our listeners, kind of like the brief overview, and then we'll jump in?
Yeah. So like she said, my name is Bria Greenwood. I am 24 years old. I am originally from Madison, Mississippi, which is about 15 minutes north of Jackson, Mississippi. And I'm the oldest of 5. My baby brother is 9 years old. And then we go all the way up to 24. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, we were all homeschooled. My sister and I both graduated from being homeschooled. And then my 2 younger brothers ended up going to public school for sports and all that stuff. And so the 9-year-old is still homeschooled. Everyone else is kind of all over the place. I'm in Houston. My sister's in Dallas. She's in the residency program at Watermark Church.
Oh, cool.
And then one brother is in Atlanta pursuing acting. Another brother is in Maryland at the Naval Academy. Wow. And then the baby is still at home with mom and dad.
So. Aw, that's so cool. That's pretty awesome. Just the variety of different career paths and passions. Wow, that's awesome.
Yes, it's really fun. So I'm super blessed to have a super close-knit family. So
Yeah.
I love them a lot. So
Oh, that's so special and super cool. It's fun. It'll be fun to hear maybe more about your family kind of as we go through.
yeah.
So, yeah, I know kind of as we got into this, people probably already have heard me say that you're a dancer. So that's really cool. But do you want to share kind of how you first got into the dance world and what that looked like?
Sure. Yes. So my sister actually started before I did.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I would watch her in the hallways and watched her for about a year. And my mom asked me if I wanted to sign up. And so I said yes. So started dancing when I was a little bit older than the normal age that people start doing ballet. And so I wasn't 3, but I was 9.
Gotcha.
So I was a little bit older, but I started dancing at 9 years old, classical ballet, and didn't start doing extra classes like jazz or contemporary until much later.
Okay.
But classical ballet, started doing that. And I was doing ballet, playing softball, and playing basketball all at the same time. And
That's
so
awesome.
I got to the point where my parents were like, you need to choose. We can't
like cart you around to all these things.
Yeah, we cannot do all this. So I chose ballet, and I'm super glad that I did. So
I'm so glad you did too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I actually started around that same time, like 9, 10-ish.
Yeah.
And yeah, I understand because you hear people and they're like, yeah, I started when I was like 2 or 3 or
There's like, I was not 3.
Exactly. But I don't know about you, but I found I think I knew I loved it because I was old enough to kind of have that choice. And so
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Resonate with that. That's cool. That's really awesome too. So you already had the athleticism side as well, because being in a lot of sports. So that's fun. And I'm sure in a way that translates relatively well into just being used to being at practice and training.
Yes.
And all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember there's a picture at my parents' house, and it's of me during a softball game. We were doing team pictures, and I literally have on pink tights.
Nice.
In the picture. So, yes.
You're running from one to the next. Yeah.
Yes.
So funny. Aw, that's awesome though. So I know that you trained with Ballet Magnificat. So did you start with them right off the bat or kind of jump over? Okay, cool.
Yes. So all of my training I got from Ballet Magnificat. So from 9 years old until 21. So I was there for a very long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So obviously Ballet Magnificat is in Jackson, Mississippi. When I tell people I'm from Mississippi and tell them about, my upbringing and all that stuff, they are very surprised when I say that we have a professional ballet company.
Yeah.
So that's one of the great things about Mississippi is that we house Ballet Magnificat.
Yeah. It is kind of random. Yeah.
Yeah. Super random.
But very cool.
But I was super blessed to be able to train there and grow up there. I've made lifelong friends from my time there. So it was a super pivotal part of my life and definitely shaped my heart for worship and specifically worship through movement.
Yeah.
And so, I loved my time there. So
that's super cool. And I went to one of their summer intensives back in, what year was that? It was probably 2004, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. I don't remember what year it was, but so that was really a cool experience. And then that's how I heard about Belhaven and ended up going to Belhaven. So
yes,
definitely a lot of love for Jackson and for the dance scene there. And it's just really special. It's different. So
yeah, I was at the intensives from 11 to 21. So 7 of the intensives, I was a student. Okay. And then 3 of the intensives, I was a counselor. So.
Oh, awesome. So we could have even crossed paths and not really realized it.
Probably.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's awesome. So being a student at Ballet Mag, do you just take ballet classes or do they incorporate other classes kind of into your training as you get older?
Yeah. So from my experience, initially it was just ballet class. And then as I got into, I was 11, whatever year that was.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It all starts to run together. I'm like, what was that?
Yeah. I was a part of the founding company in the School of the Arts called Magnificat Youth Ballet.
Oh, cool.
And so it was just a small company inside of the School of the Arts that traveled around Jackson to nursing homes and schools and churches and things like that. And so when I got around that age is when they started incorporating jazz classes once a week, contemporary, all that stuff. So
cool. Yeah.
But specifically ballet and point was the main focus.
That's for sure the focus there. And I think that's really good too, because it kind of gives you that solid base and can kind of branch out from there. So yeah. And you mentioned worship and worship through movement. Was that sort of I know at least at the summer intensives, they would incorporate that into kind of the daily schedule. Was that something that was incorporated in kind of the year-round curriculum that you guys did?
Yes. So like I said, my time at Ballet Mag was a super pivotal time in my life as a young believer. And I'm super thankful because part of the requirement for being in the youth company was that we would have to memorize scripture. And I think we probably at one point had to do like 10 verses or something and recite them from memory to the director. And we would have to share a testimony.
Wow. Yeah.
And after every performance that we would have, one of us would share a testimony. And so Ballet Mag was very intentional in raising up believers and young believers who were very bold in sharing their faith. So yeah, I'm super grateful for that because I do it to this day, you know, sharing my faith with after performances at Ad Deum. And so it was good practice for what I'm doing now. Yeah.
I would say it can be very intimidating, you know, like sharing your faith and talking about your experiences. And so that's kind of cool that it sort of gave you that courage early on, or like having to push past that fear and like insecurity. So
yes, I'm innately very shy.
Okay.
And I don't enjoy being in front of people and talking. So I very much was pushed out of my comfort zone.
Gotcha.
And then my last year in the youth company in the school, I was voted to share after every performance.
Oh, wow.
And so it was very much out of my comfort zone, but the Lord grew me a lot. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And I can see how that totally translates into what you guys do with Ad Deum and, you know, getting to be in kind of community outreach settings and things like that. So I know you said you were there till 21 at Ballet Mag. What was the transition like transitioning out of Ballet Mag?
Yeah. So after high school, I auditioned for the trainee program at Ballet Magnificat and got in and was a trainee with them for 3 years. And so how it's set up is that you are able, at the time there were 2 trainee levels.
Okay.
And so you can be in each trainee level a maximum amount of 2 years.
Okay.
And so my second year in the Trainee 2 company, which is their events company, was coming to an end. And at the beginning of the second semester of the school year, we always have evaluations. And so what that entails is the leadership of Ballet Mag will have a one-on-one meeting with each dancer and kind of assess what the next year will look like basically for them. And so I went up for my evaluation and it was super encouraging. The leadership was super encouraging and just what they had seen the Lord do through me while I was there and how much the Lord had grown me. And so that was super sweet. But Yuri Vyborski, who's the resident choreographer there, he started the conversation with saying that he didn't know why, but the Lord was saying no.
Yeah.
And so
that's a hard moment. Yeah. When you've been in this for so long and you've been working so
right.
hard and like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was, if I would be lying if I said that I wasn't hurt and wasn't disappointed, because I had been there for 13 years. I mean, they were my family. They still are. But, you know, that's just where I was every single day for almost every single day for the last 13 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was super hard. Mm-hmm. But I left that meeting and went home and just took time to process. And it was quite a process afterwards. But the Lord is so sweet and so gracious. And he walked with me through that process. And I was super fortunate to have, you know, my family being there and encouraging me and super great friends.
Yeah. That community is vital. Especially in moments like that where you're like, I feel like the wind knocked out of me kind of thing. Like, what do I do now? I'm not sure.
Yes. So it was super hard because, you know, I thought that was where the Lord had planted me. Mm-hmm. And so really wasn't, I mean, I knew that it wasn't a guarantee, but I was hoping.
Yeah.
But the Lord said no. But in hindsight, you know, 4 or 5 years later, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes the Lord's no is not awful. Like it'll be okay, you know?
Yeah.
And,
he has
you know, the verse, exactly. Yeah. And the verse that would come to mind as I was processing with the Lord afterwards was, I think it's in Isaiah 55, 8-9, that says that his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And that just rings so true now.
Yeah.
You know, 4 years later.
So, looking back, like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's really beautiful. Yeah. And that is so hard though, when, you know, you kind of have your mindset on one thing and kind of that dream and moving towards it. And then it's like a closed door and it's like, okay, what do I do? But yeah, the Lord's faithfulness in bringing probably even better things than we would have ever imagined.
Absolutely.
Along. So how did you kind of already know about Ad Deum at that point? Or how did you come to know about Ad Deum?
No. Okay. So crazy. Cause I did not know about Ad Deum at all. And so my trainee director, Cassandra, she, in that evaluation, who was up there? Miss Soul, Miss Yuri, and Miss Cassandra all up there with me.
Okay.
And all three of them said that you cannot stop dancing. And so they all suggested Ad Deum, and Cassandra said that if she wasn't at Ballet Mag, she would be at Ad Deum. Mm-hmm. And Yuri just had so many, you know, great things to say about Randy, because Randy was the one who brought him to America.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that.
Many years before that. And so she told me about Ad Deum, and so I, you know, went and Googled.
Yes, exactly. Ask Professor Google.
Found some videos on YouTube and just loved their movement. It was so different than anything I had ever seen before, because before this I had never done modern. Right. I had done jazz and contemporary, but never modern. Mm-hmm. And so looked them up and loved what I saw. And so I sent in an audition. Oh, that's hard to say. An audition for the summer intensive.
Cool.
And got into one of the levels and auditioned. And it was me and Lindsay DeClava. We were the only two. Well, actually, there was three. There was three of us in the audition. Okay. So super small.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned, was there for that whole week of the intensive. And so I got to take class from just phenomenal teachers like Steve Rooks, Alicia Graf Mack.
Yeah.
Laura Morton, you know.
Yeah.
People
so many,
like that.
So many awesome people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing people. And it was so crazy because probably when I was around 8 or 9 would watch YouTube videos of Alicia Graf Mack.
Really? Whoa,
Yeah.
that would be like
And
such a crazy moment.
I was like very starstruck,
Yeah.
basically.
I could
I was like,
understand that.
what in the world?
Like, how am I in the same room with you?
Yeah, that was
So
a
cool.
super special time. So
Mhm.
I auditioned, and a few weeks later, got an email that I was invited into the second company.
Cool.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome. So at that point, was Shizu, she had already kind of
Yes,
started
she was
directing
the
Ad Deum
director.
too. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was your first time to move and be on your own.
Yes. So that was very much a faith move because September of 2016, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer.
Wow.
And so we had been, walking through that journey for about a half of a year, a little bit over that. And so I honestly I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to move because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation with my dad and us just praying over my decision to move or not to move. And he said that he didn't want me to stop living my life and that he wanted me to do exactly what the Lord had called me to do. And the Lord has called me to dance. And so it was super hard, but I'm so thankful that I didn't make the decision out of fear, but made a decision to step out in faith. And it was crazy because at the time we didn't know this, but the doctors later told us that they only expected him to live 12 to 18 months.
Wow. Oh,
and yeah. So years later, we were told this, and we're so thankful that they didn't tell us because there are so many decisions that my siblings and I would have made out of fear.
Yeah.
And the Lord has just blessed us and we're all thriving in what the Lord has called us to do. And that wouldn't have happened if we would have known that, and we would have just been stuck in that fearful place.
Right.
So
yeah, wow.
Super, super thankful for God giving that doctor discernment.
Yes. And there's something like psychological, I feel like, about I'm sure there's people that know way more about this than I do, but the idea of like, when we're kind of telling ourselves things too, like I only have this long to live, or, it can be very
absolutely
powerful, I feel like, or, saying not knowing those things can be really powerful too. Just, and just
absolutely
living to the fullest and, taking good care of our bodies best we can. And but it's hard not to live in fear when you have been told those things, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That
would be so intense. Yeah. Mind if I ask, how is your dad right now? How is he doing?
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
He's doing great. So with his diagnosis, it was obviously metastatic. And so it had spread to other parts of his body.
Yeah.
And so they weren't able to take the cancer out. But with chemotherapy and radiation, they were able to condense it, basically.
Oh, okay.
And so he's doing great right now. He's taking a chemo pill.
Okay.
And, taking steroids and hormone shots. And he goes every month for blood work. But he's doing great. And we're so
praise
thankful.
God. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool to hear that. And just, to know, like, totally living well above and beyond, like, whatever, people thought originally. So that's so exciting. And,
oh my gosh. Yeah. We're so thankful. They said 12 to 18 months, and it's now it'll be almost 5 years. And
that's so great.
September.
That's awesome. Well, praying for a complete healing and just continued strength for all of that. Cause I know it's like the whole journey is just a lot as well.
Yes.
So
it's been super hard, but the Lord has been so faithful and so good.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I bet your mom as well. I've seen some of your mom, like maybe things that you've shared on social media, some of the things that she's doing. And she seems just like a powerhouse of a woman as well.
She is. She very much is. She is a caregiver, a mom of 5, has multiple businesses.
Wow.
So she is a boss babe.
That's awesome. Love it so much. Yes. So cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're in the midst of that, just like emotionally and everything, kind of like a couple of really hard things that are going on just with transitioning out of Ballet Mag trainee program, and then also like things at home, and then making the move. So what was that experience like when you first got to Houston? What was that like?
Oh man. My first year in Houston, I feel like I was a hot mess. And
I totally can feel that though.
Yeah, it was very challenging to, it's my first time moving away from home. Also, with my dad being sick, he was in and out of the ICU multiple times. My first year in Houston, so I was going back and forth from Houston, Mississippi. And so I would say my first year I felt very much like a hot mess. Mm-hmm. But I'm so, so thankful. And, this is just a testament to how the Lord has just blessed Randy's vision for Ad Deum and the community that we have. But I am so thankful for the community that as soon as I got here, we were like a family.
Yeah, it's very, very much like that. You kind of just come into the fold. Yeah. So cool.
Yes. And so that was, I don't know that I would have been able to make it through that first year without my Ad Deum family. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
But it was very hard, but the Lord taught me a lot during that first year. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was getting ready to move and just asking the Lord for a word that he would want me to focus on for that next year. And the word that he gave me was newness. And it came from the verse, I can't remember where it is, but it talks about, behold, I'm making all things new. I can't remember this. Yeah, the Lord is just, he made it super, not easy, but it was a lot better of a transition being in that new season with new people. But he was just so gracious in that transitional period.
Mm-hmm. Kind of getting settled and figuring it out. Yeah. Did you have somewhere to live when you moved?
I did. Okay. Yeah. That was a super cool story too, because my roommate, who's still my roommate, she also was a trainee at Ballet Mag.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so she also auditioned and we both got in. And so came to Houston and we're roommates, and we had 2 other roommates join us. And so the Lord just completely provided housing, a job.
Yeah.
I got a teaching job over the phone, basically.
Oh, wow.
Like she read my resume, but there wasn't anything like super special in it.
Right. That's so awesome though. Yeah. Just like trusting.
Yeah. She just hired me over the phone, and my mom and I had written out a budget, basically how much I would need every month. Mm-hmm. And the Lord just completely exceeded that.
Wow.
So yeah, it was such a gift, because I was obviously moving by myself. My parents weren't going to be able to help me just because of hospital bills and all the stuff that they were dealing with. And so the Lord had to provide.
Right. Like, this is the only way this is possible.
Yeah. And he did. Mm-hmm. He did exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or think.
That's so cool. So beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have some exciting news to share with you about the Root Collective. They've recently launched shoes for men. You should totally check them out. They have some really awesome boots that are stylish and ethically made. If you haven't heard me talking about the Root Collective before, the Root Collective is a company that partners with small independent workshops to help support artisans in Guatemala and to provide ethically made fair trade products. I'm a huge fan of the Root Collective, and something super fun that's going on this week, and I believe next week as well, is they're including an Easter egg with a fun surprise inside with every order between now and the week after Easter. It's a great time to check out their products and look and feel good, making a difference. You can check out the Root Collective by going to creativeimpactpodcast.com/RC. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/RC, which stands for Root Collective. Now back to my conversation with Bria. In your time with Ad Deum, so you started out in the second company. What has your time there looked like? So I know you're in the main company now. So when did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I started in the second company under Shizu.
Yay!
And oh my goodness, my first year transitioning from classical ballet to codified modern technique.
Yes. And then on top of it, when Shizu is your teacher or director, because I love Shizu so much. Did you see the thing? This is like side note. Did you see that thing that was going around on Facebook that was like, it was like a dad doing a cartwheel or something, and then the little kid trying to copy him and just like face planting? I think it was Whitney.
Yes,
she was like, this is Shizu.
Yeah.
And this is us.
Yes,
so true.
Exactly. That's how I felt trying to mimic Shizu's movement.
Yes, I just relate completely. She's beautiful.
Oh my goodness. But it was quite interesting, very challenging. I had never been so challenged before in my life. Yeah. But I loved it so much because naturally my body is not a classical ballet body.
Gotcha.
And so it loved the modern technique and contemporary so much more.
It's like, ooh, this fits. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though classical ballet I think will always be my first love, but I love modern and contemporary. And so that first year was super challenging, but I learned a lot. And I remember being in those like first few classes, standing behind Danny Hammock.
Oh, yes.
Who was a principal dancer with the main company at the time. And just trying to mimic her, basically.
Yes.
Because I had no idea what I was doing.
Like, I'm just going to try to match the picture. Yeah.
Because before that, I didn't know what a contraction was. I didn't know what a spiral was. Like, all of those words were completely foreign to me.
That's a huge, like, learning curve. Even though, I mean, obviously, your body is trained to catch on to new movement and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of this whole nother way of thinking about movement. And like, I know for sure over time, it's like, oh, that's what they were talking about like 2 years ago. That I'm like still figuring out what this whole contraction thing is. Yeah. It's
exactly.
So
so that first year was super challenging, but super great. Loved it. And the second year I was invited back into the second company, and then spring of 2018, Randy invited me into the main company as an apprentice.
Cool.
And so had my first year as an apprentice last year and was promoted to a principal dancer this year.
That's awesome.
In the main company. So
so cool. So
it's been a journey.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot and am still learning a lot. It's so strange, coming into a community, as the newbie, and then now 4 years later, my friend Hannah and I are the oldest ones in the company, basically now. So it's so very weird. But.
Yes. Yeah, it's weird how things kind of turn over and change happens. And even like, like in the college setting, things change so fast. But yeah, in a company setting too, you kind of have that shifting of seasons and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm like the experienced veteran here, which is weird. For sure.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Do you have any things that you would say have been highlights from your time dancing professionally, or even challenges, kind of whatever comes to mind?
Yeah. Again, going back to taking from Alicia Goff-Mack, my first year in 82, she taught our Horton classes.
Oh, wow.
And some of our ballet classes. And so that was just like a dream to take from her. So just was really trying to soak in all of her knowledge, because she's just so amazing. So that was definitely a highlight. And also being able to work with Steve Rooks, my first class with him at the intensive, I was like, oh, he's so amazing.
Yeah.
So I loved getting to work with him. And I just I've learned so much from Randy and from Shizu, and just been so encouraged by their steadfastness.
Yeah. Just, the longevity is like really incredible.
Yes.
And like you said, steadfastness and just like sticking with that mission, and even when challenges come, and
Yes. So I've learned a lot from watching them. And so I would say those are my highlights. And then also just gaining lifelong friends. Like I said earlier, it's been such a huge blessing to have the community that we have here.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's so good. And have you seen any like defining moments so far in your journey that stand out to you? Seems like definitely the transition point coming to Houston.
Yes.
That was for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely. I would say there have been various moments that I think have been defining for me as just almost solidifying God's call in my life. And so whenever, we're performing and an audience member will come up and say that they felt the presence of the Lord while I was dancing, or they just felt peace or joy. Every time I hear that, I'm like, okay, God, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do right now in this season of my life. And so I would say those are the various defining moments throughout.
It's nice to have the
so far
kind of like confirmations along the way of like, yes, this is where I want you.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. I know you'd mentioned dealing with injuries as well, and that being kind of part of your story. Do you want to share a little bit about your experience with injury?
Yeah.
No fun.
So I know it's not fun at all. My first experience with a serious injury was in 2011. I tore my meniscus and didn't realize I had torn it, and so continued to dance on it, and therefore that created a cyst. And so had to have surgery to repair it. Thankfully, they were able to repair it, but because they were able to repair it, it was a longer recovery time.
Gotcha.
I was out of dance for a little over 3 months and doing physical therapy, on crutches, the whole nine. So that was my first experience with a really hard injury. And that was super hard because, I think I was 14, 15 at the time.
So young, and you kind of don't feel like you're going to have to experience that or like sit out and watch other people doing stuff.
Yeah. And it was, right before recital, and I was one of the main characters in our story ballet. And so my sister ended up having to do my part.
Nice.
So yeah, that was fun. And she was crying more than me at the doctor's appointment. She's like, I don't want to do your part.
That's so cute. That's funny though.
Yeah. So that was my first experience. And then most recently I've just had a bunch of like spinal and neck and rib and all.
Oh man, those are pretty vital areas, I feel like.
Yeah, it's not been fun.
No.
But I will say that I am very much a go-getter and, don't like to rest a lot.
Yeah.
And so when I have dealt with injuries, I just take it as the Lord's just saying, you need to sit down and just like be with me, learn how to rest. And, those first few years that I was injured, the Lord really taught me about my identity. And I was putting, my identity in me being a dancer and, I'm the ballerina, all that stuff. And the Lord just kind of had to like shake me a little bit and be like, hey, no, you're first a daughter of the King, and that's my identity first and foremost.
Yeah.
No matter what I'm doing. So because I learned that lesson way back in 2011, it's still, he, brings it back every single time I am dealing with an injury, that my identity is not in being a dancer. My worth is not found in, what I do in Ad Deum or wherever I am, but my worth is found in him and him alone. So
yeah, that's so good. So hard to like really rest in, but so good.
Yes.
So true. That's awesome. And yeah, that's huge. Like the identity piece. And is there anything else you feel like you've learned through like just walking through recovery or like that having to rest and those kind of things?
I would say that I learned that there's a difference between having joy and happiness, and that happiness is often based on your circumstances, but that a supernatural joy that comes from the Lord is rooted in his sovereignty and knowing that, he has us in the palm of his hands.
Yeah.
And so just learning how to walk through trials with joy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
But good.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So this is like kind of going to a different area of, what you're doing in your life. When did your passion for teaching develop, or was it like out of necessity, like, hey, I have to teach to pay the bills and then that kind of thing?
No, so my passion for teaching started probably when I was around 16.
Okay, cool.
My first teaching job was at a little daycare in Jackson, Mississippi.
Aww.
And there I think I had 4 little girls in my class, and they were just so cute, and I just loved being able to be a part of something that brought them joy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when my passion for teaching ignited.
And
I was super fortunate to be given opportunities those first few years of teaching where I could teach. And so I taught at the Salvation Army through a program that Ballet Magnificat put on.
Oh, that's really cool.
I taught at daycares. I taught for a ministry called His Heart in Jackson. Did some summer camps with their kids. And so got to kind of get my feet wet a little bit with teaching and just loved it so much. And also subbed some classes at Ballet Mag.
Okay, cool.
For the school. And so got to do a little bit of teaching those first few years. And then when I moved to Houston, it was my income.
Right.
So I was teaching a lot my first year, and I just love teaching.
Yeah.
So.
What ages are you teaching now?
So I am teaching 2 years old all the way up to adults.
Nice. So. That's awesome. That's really cool. It is kind of fun to see the variety of like stages that people are in, and kind of keeps it changed up, which is nice. So
yes.
Are there any like key things you feel like you've learned as a teacher or through teaching, I guess I should say?
I've learned that my words matter.
Ooh, yeah.
And, the scripture, I think it's in Proverbs 18, that talks about how the power of life or death is in the power of the tongue. And how that very much is true. And so I want to speak life over my students and, encourage them, but also encourage them to step out of their comfort zone and not stay stagnant.
Yeah.
And so, I would say that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned from teaching. And I know that I've had amazing teachers throughout my years of training, and I realized the impact that they had on my life. And so I understand the weight that I have as their teacher too. So
kind of recognizing this is a big responsibility in a way, and not taking it lightly. That's huge for sure.
Yeah.
So this year obviously has been totally weird and like crazy with the pandemic and all the virtual stuff, and both, I guess, in your work with Ad Deum and then also with teaching. How has the pandemic affected things for you this year?
Sure. Yeah. So with Ad Deum, this time last year, actually, we were doing a photo shoot with my sister, and we were supposed to have our spring intensive that next week, but we obviously went to quarantine. And so we all kind of dispersed Some people stayed in Houston. Other people, went home. I went back home to Mississippi to be with my family.
Yeah. That's probably a good call with everything.
Yes. I'm super thankful to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so went back home, and we were just doing one class a week via Zoom with Ad Deum. And so that's kind of what it looked like those first few months of the pandemic. And then we came back to Houston towards the end of the summer.
Okay.
Yes. And then we came back into the studio. And so now we are wearing masks. We were very much socially distanced. All the things. Right. So it's not been fun dancing with the mask, but it's what we have to do in the season. So
exactly,
it's all right.
It's hard to teach in a mask too, with all the talking.
Yes, it's very hard to teach.
It's just more tiring.
Yeah. So with teaching, I was able to teach remotely.
Oh, cool.
And so the Lord was super kind, and I was making just enough to pay my rent here in Houston.
Yeah.
And so I was super thankful to be able to be with my family.
Yeah, to be together with them. So you're not just isolated and still get to pay the rent. That's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we eventually went back into the studio.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know it's just very different now. Now it's pretty much everyone at the studio back where you're teaching. Are they back in person now? Or are there still some people?
For the most part, we still have some students that are taking via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a little difficult trying to, do the hybrid thing. But
it's hard because it's like the focus is pulled, so it's hard to really give, at least I found that when there were a couple times with school that we've been back online for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever for various reasons. And we're like, oh, this is kind of nice because we can focus on the online element of it. Obviously we like being in person more, but it's like kind of nice to have one or the other, because when you have both, you're kind of like, who do I focus on right now? And, trying not to like forget about the people that are on Zoom or whatever.
Yes.
So I can totally understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're all kind of navigating new things. Not as new anymore, but it's still pretty new, honestly.
Learning curve for sure.
Yes, definitely. For sure. So just thinking forward, what are some things that you are, like currently passionate about or like looking towards in the future? Do you have anything kind of on the horizon at this point?
I think that after I'm done dancing full time, that I would love to continue teaching.
Yeah.
And I would love to teach, at conventions or, whatever that looks like. Right now I've been teaching at different studios during the summer.
Oh, cool.
And so that's been super fun, just getting to, go to different states and, pour into young girls.
Yeah.
So that's been super great. Yeah. So I would love to continue doing that after I'm done dancing full time.
Yeah, that would be super fun.
But yeah, I really do believe, the verse in, I think, Matthew 6:33.
Mm-hmm.
That's to seek you first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be added unto you. And so I know that if I am seeking the Lord and being very prayerful about, future decisions, that he will lead me in the direction that he wants me to go. So
amen. For sure. So good. I love it. And it's just really cool to hear your journey and see, how God has prepared you along the way for like the different seasons. And I know he'll continue to do that too. So, and, opening the right doors and shutting the ones that we don't always want to shut, but that ends up being for the best.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
One thing I like to ask everyone is, what is something that may be on your heart right now to share with other artists?
Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, that I remember when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and the verse in James 1 that says, "Count it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." And if I could encourage my fellow believer artists, is that I would say, don't let your circumstances distort your view of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's so hard right now, with the pandemic and just life. But that verse has really challenged me during my seasons of injuries and most recently with my dad's cancer diagnosis. Just a reminder that, God is immutable and that his word says that he stays the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that he promises to never leave us or forsake us. And that's not just an empty statement. That's a covenant that he's making with his children. And so I would encourage anyone to just really trust that the Lord has a perfect plan and that it might, like we said, might not look the way that we want it to look, but that his ways are better. His thoughts are better. Yeah. So that's what I would say. And also that going back to what we said, that joy is not happiness, but joy is rooted in a confidence in knowing that God is sovereign and that nothing can come to us but through his fingers of love.
Yeah, so good. So, love that truth. And I think that's something that is so good to be reminded of, and like have that over us. So I really love those thoughts and thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Yeah. So this is just a fun question, but what is one of your favorite things right now?
Okay. So I made a challenge for myself in January that I would read one book a month.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm reading a lot right now, which is great. So I've been loving to read and love listening to podcasts. Yay. So I actually have listened to a lot of yours.
Oh, awesome. Woohoo. Yeah. That's great.
And then I just love learning more, about teaching.
Yeah.
And just learning how to be a better teacher for my students. And so love finding different resources for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a favorite book that you've read recently or one that stands out that you would recommend?
Yeah. I'm kind of in the middle of like a few.
Gotcha. I totally do that. Like multiple books.
I just finished Welcome to Adulting by Jonathan Pokluda.
Okay, cool.
And then Be the Bridge by Latasha Morrison.
Oh, I haven't read that, but I want to.
Yeah. And then One Blood, Parting Words to the Church on Race and Love by John Perkins.
Oh, awesome.
So those are the three that I've finished in the middle of.
Okay, awesome. So. I'll definitely have to look into those for sure. So I've heard Latasha speak on a different podcast at least once, maybe twice, and just loved her perspective and thoughts and would love to read that book too. So
yeah,
I hadn't heard of the other one. So adulting, woohoo.
Yes, I love that word.
Yes.
Adulting. I use it a lot.
Yes. I'm like, okay, when did I officially start adulting? Maybe it was when I had to figure out a retirement account or insurance or whatever. So
yes.
Paying our own taxes, all the fun things.
All the things.
Love it. Love it. If anyone would like to get in touch with you or just, chat more and that kind of thing, is there a good way that they can connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. My username is Bria. So BRIAS. Greenwood, GREENWOOD, and S is for my middle name. So.
Cool.
And then I'm also on Facebook at Bria Greenwood.
Perfect. Well, this has been so much fun, and it's been really fun getting to know you better since I've admired you from a distance.
Thank you. Really thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so fun.
For sure. Guys, wasn't that so good? I loved when Bria said, "Don't let your circumstances distort your view of God." I was like, whew, so much good truth from Bria today. You can find all the links, the full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. You can also find a link to our Patreon community where you can get connected in with me and also other listeners and get behind the scenes and bonus content from the podcast. It's a great way to support the show and get fun extras. Again, you can check it out on our website. Just look for the tab that says Patreon Community at the top. Next week, I'm joined by Abby Williamson. Abby lives in Nepal with her husband and their 2 sons. They're working there to help bring quality education in schools. And she recently started the Culture Canvas, which provides arts and culture learning resources for little global citizens. I'm so excited for you to hear her story and all the work that she and her family are doing in Nepal. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Share the show with a friend, check out the fun Easter bonuses at the Root Collective, and I'll see you next week for my conversation with Abby Williamson.